The Meridian's Edge, flagship of the Galactic Navy's 7th Fleet, hung in space like a suspended crystal dagger. Its obsidian hull absorbed, rather than reflected, the light of nearby stars, giving it the appearance of a void cut into the fabric of space itself. Within its command chamber, a meeting of unprecedented importance was taking place. Admiral Vexthera, a Toxian whose skin rippled with intelligence-conveying color patterns, presided over the high-level briefing. The chamber's holographic displays cast a pale blue glow across the faces of 24 representatives from various species throughout the Galactic Alliance. They had gathered for a single purpose: to review the classification of Sol 3, Earth's designation, as a combat zone. Lieutenant Commander Torres sat uncomfortably at the far end of the elliptical table. As the sole human representative in the Galactic Navy's Intelligence Division, he found himself the focus of subtle attention. 847 cycles had passed since humanity had joined the Alliance. Yet Torres could still feel the underlying tension whenever humans were discussed in military contexts. "The session will commence," Admiral Vexthera announced, her skin pulsing with formal magenta tones. "We are gathered to review Intelligence Assessment File 847 Alpha 3 regarding the combat classification of Sol 3, known to its inhabitants as Earth." The holographic display at the center of the table shimmered and expanded, revealing a rotating blue-green sphere, Earth, captured in perfect detail. "Our first assessment report comes from Commander Zix," the Admiral continued. A crystalline being rose from its specially designed chair. Commander Zix's body emitted a soft chiming sound as crystalline structures shifted against one another. "The Intelligence Division has collected significant documentation over the past 847 cycles. Today, we will review Mission Record 847 Delta, which contains concerning footage of a human diplomatic delegation." Torres straightened in his chair. He wasn't familiar with this particular record, despite his position. The holographic display flickered, and the image of Earth disappeared, replaced by footage of a human delegation seated around a conference table not unlike their current one. Torres recognized the setting. It was from a diplomatic meeting about resource-sharing agreements nearly 200 cycles ago. The footage zoomed in on one human in particular, a middle-aged man in formal attire. The subtitle identified him as Dave from Accounting, Earth Financial Liaison. What happened next sent ripples of alarm through the assembled aliens. Dave opened his mouth enormously wide, displaying all his teeth in what appeared to be a threatening display, then inhaled sharply before releasing a prolonged exhale. "He's yawning," Torres said automatically, then regretted speaking as all eyes turned toward him. "Lieutenant Commander, are you familiar with this Predator intimidation display?" Commander Zix asked. Crystalline structures glinting dangerously. "It's not an intimidation display," Torres explained. "It's an involuntary physiological response to fatigue or boredom. We call it yawning." "Interesting terminology." Commander Themor, another Toxian, interjected. His skin displayed skeptical patterns of blue and yellow. "Yet our analysis indicates this is clearly a coordinated Predator display." "Coordinated?" Torres asked, confused. The footage continued, showing another human in the delegation yawning shortly after Dave. Then another. Within minutes, several humans were yawning. "As you can see," Commander Zix continued, "the entire human delegation engaged in this intimidation display in sequence. Our xenobiologists believe this demonstrates a synchronized hunting behavior." Torres almost laughed but caught himself. "No, that's still just yawning. It's contagious among humans. When we see someone yawn, we often yawn in response. It's completely harmless." "Contagious behavior?" Captain Rosak, another crystalline being, spoke for the first time. "You admit that humans transmit behavioral patterns through visual contact?" Torres suddenly realized the direction this was heading. "Yes, but not in the way you're implying. It's not mind control or anything sinister." Admiral Vexthera's skin flickered with decision patterns. We shall continue with the evidence presentation. Director Vashi, please proceed with your analysis. A third crystalline being, taller than the others, and with more complex formations, activated another holographic display. During this same diplomatic mission, we recorded evidence of chemical warfare deployment. The display showed footage of a human female diplomat wiping her eyes during a particularly emotional speech about Earth's gratitude for being accepted into the Alliance. Observe the chemical agent deployment, Director Vashi said, zooming in on the tear sliding down the woman's cheek. Spectroscopic analysis reveals this fluid contains proteins, enzymes, lipids, and sodium chloride. When questioned, the humans claimed these were tears produced by crying, allegedly an emotional response. Torres felt his stomach sink. That's exactly what they are. Tears are a natural human response to strong emotions, irritants, or sometimes even yawning. Convenient, Admiral Vexthera commented, her skin displaying skeptical orange patterns. That these natural responses happen to produce chemical compounds capable of causing distress in several Alliance species. We didn't evolve with knowledge of Alliance species, Torres protested. These are just basic human biological functions. The meeting continued with mounting evidence of humanity's threatening behaviors. Representative Morton of the Aquatic Federation presented footage of humans engaged in karaoke and dance at a cultural exchange event. The energetic movements, rhythmic sounds, and coordinated activities were interpreted as psychological warfare patterns and sensory jamming techniques. The Hive speaker clique, representing the Hive Collective, displayed images of humans exercising in gymnasiums, their bodies producing sweat. These fitness centers are clearly biological weapon training facilities, the speaker insisted, compound eyes reflecting the holographic light. The humans deliberately stress their bodies to produce toxic secretions. Sweat is just a cooling mechanism, Torres tried to explain. It's how humans regulate body temperature. By dispersing potentially harmful biological material into the surrounding environment, Representative Threo of the Botanical Alliance added. The plant-like being's leaves rustled with concern. Our analysis shows human sweat contains compounds that could disrupt sensitive organisms. Torres watched in growing dismay as footage of children playing patty cake was presented as evidence of neurological programming and combat coordination training from infancy. School theater productions were described as deception training facilities. Every normal human activity was being reinterpreted through the lens of military threat assessment. This is absurd, Torres finally said, unable to contain himself. You're taking completely innocent behaviors out of context. Context? Admiral Vexthera's skin pulsed with deep crimson patterns. The context, Lieutenant Commander, is 847 cycles of documented evidence suggesting Earth harbors a weaponized biological civilization. The tension in the room was palpable. Torres knew he needed to tread carefully. Challenging the Admiral directly could jeopardize Earth's standing even further. With respect, Admiral, he said slowly, I believe there may be some cultural misunderstandings. Before he could finish his sentence, Torres felt a familiar tickle in his nose. He tried to suppress it, knowing how it might be interpreted. But it was too late. The sneeze erupted from him with explosive force. Achoo! The reaction was instantaneous. Emergency lights bathed the room in red and amber hues. Alarm klaxons blared. Crystalline beings vibrated in distress patterns. Toxian's skin flashed with emergency coloration. The botanical representative's leaves curled protectively inward. Biological contaminant detected, a computerized voice announced. Isolation protocols activated. Transparent barriers descended from the ceiling, encapsulating Torres in a containment field. Air purification systems hummed to life, creating visible currents in the chamber as specialized filters worked to capture any particles he might have released. This, Admiral Vexthera declared, her skin pulsing with triumphant patterns. Is precisely the evidence we've been discussing. A long-range biological weapon deployment, directly in the Galactic Navy's command chamber. "It's just a sneeze," Torres protested, his voice muffled by the containment field. "It's an involuntary expulsion of air due to nasal irritation. An involuntary release of potentially hostile microorganisms," Commander Themor countered, skin displaying analytical blue patterns. "You've just demonstrated the very threat we've been assessing." Torres looked around the room in desperation. The situation was spiraling out of control. A simple sneeze had confirmed every misguided fear the Alliance harbored about humanity. "Request emergency consultation," a calm voice said from the communications panel. "Dr. Cathal Keptile, Xenoarchaeology, requesting immediate input on the current proceedings." Admiral Vexthera paused, her skin displaying consideration patterns. "Connect Dr. Keptile." The holographic display shifted to show an older Toxian female, her skin displaying the muted, complex patterns of academic achievement. Behind her, Torres could see shelves laden with physical data storage devices, a rarity in the digital age. "I've been monitoring the briefing," Dr. Keptile said, her skin showing concerned yellow-green patterns. "I believe there's a critical oversight in our analysis methodology." "Proceed, Doctor," Admiral Vexthera permitted, though her skin betrayed impatience. "I've spent the last 70 cycles studying human historical records," Dr. Keptile explained. "The behaviors being identified as military threats have consistent historical presence in human development, predating their technological advancement by thousands of years." "Your point?" Admiral Vexthera prompted. "These aren't military adaptations," Dr. Keptile said firmly. "They're fundamental biological and social traits that evolved naturally on Earth. The contextual interpretation being applied is fundamentally flawed." "That's what I've been trying to explain," Torres said, still trapped in the containment field. Admiral Vexthera's skin displayed skeptical patterns. "Dr. Keptile, are you suggesting our entire intelligence apparatus has misinterpreted the evidence for over 800 cycles?" "Not intentionally," Dr. Keptile replied, her skin showing diplomatic caution. "But yes, I believe we've been viewing human behavior through an inappropriate analytical framework. I request permission to present a comprehensive review with Lieutenant Commander Torres." After a moment of consideration, during which her skin displayed a complex debate of colors, Admiral Vexthera nodded. "Granted, the Threat Assessment Committee will reconvene in 24 hours. Until then, Lieutenant Commander Torres will remain in biohazard containment." As the meeting adjourned, Torres found himself being escorted, still in his portable containment field, to Dr. Keptile's research laboratory aboard the science vessel Infinite Curiosity, which had apparently docked with the Meridian's Edge during the briefing. Dr. Keptile's laboratory was unlike any Torres had seen before. While most Alliance facilities were sleek, organized, and predominantly digital, her space was cluttered with physical artifacts, actual paper books, a rarity, and holographic displays showing various Earth historical periods simultaneously. "They've finally done it," Dr. Keptile said as the doors sealed behind them. "I've been warning about this misinterpretation for decades." "You can deactivate the containment field," Torres suggested hopefully. "I promise not to sneeze on your artifacts." Dr. Keptile's skin displayed amusement patterns. "Of course." She pressed a sequence on her console, and the field disappeared with a soft hum. "I am well aware that human respiratory emissions pose no significant threat. I've been studying your species since first contact." "Then you understand how ridiculous this whole situation is?" Torres asked, relieved to find an ally. "Ridiculous, but dangerous," Dr. Keptile corrected, her skin showing serious blue-gray patterns. "The Galactic Navy doesn't make classification decisions lightly. If Earth remains categorized as a combat zone, it could have severe diplomatic and economic consequences." "So what do we do?" Torres asked. We re-examine every piece of evidence they've compiled, Dr. Keptile said, gesturing to the mountains of data storage around them. And we provide the proper context that's been missing from their analysis. For the next several hours, Torres and Dr. Keptile worked tirelessly, reviewing hundreds of incidents where normal human behavior had been misinterpreted as threatening. They discovered that the Alliance's assessment of humanity had been fundamentally skewed from the beginning. The earliest encounters had established a pattern of misinterpretation that subsequent observations merely reinforced. Each species in the Alliance had contributed its own misunderstandings. Toxians found human emotional displays alarming. Crystallines were disturbed by human physical flexibility. Aquatics considered human fluid emissions potentially hostile. Hive members couldn't comprehend individual behaviors, and botanicals were unsettled by human consumption patterns. "It's a perfect storm of misunderstanding," Torres observed as they compiled their findings. Each species interpreted us through their own biological and cultural lens, and no one ever compared notes properly. "Precisely," Dr. Keptile agreed, her skin displaying scholarly satisfaction. The compartmentalization of intelligence gathering created a fragmented picture. No single agency had the complete context. "But why didn't anyone consult humans directly about these behaviors?" Torres asked. Dr. Keptile's skin showed embarrassment patterns. In the early days, there was concern about revealing intelligence operations to potential adversaries. By the time humans were more integrated into the Alliance, the misinterpretations were so entrenched that questioning them seemed unnecessary. As they worked, Commander Zix arrived to assist with the crystalline species intelligence reports. Initially skeptical, the commander became increasingly disturbed as the evidence of systematic misinterpretation mounted. "This is concerning," Commander Zix admitted. "Crystal structures emitting troubled harmonics. If we've been this wrong about humans, what other species have we misunderstood?" By the time the Threat Assessment Committee reconvened, Torres, Dr. Keptile, and Commander Zix had prepared a comprehensive presentation demolishing every misconception about human behavior. Torres remained in a containment field, but now it seemed more ceremonial than precautionary. The Harmony Chamber, where the committee met, was larger and more formal than the previous briefing room. Representatives from all major Alliance species were present, their attention focused on the central presentation area, where Torres stood in his containment field, flanked by Dr. Keptile and Commander Zix. Admiral Vexthera opened the proceedings, her skin displaying formal purple patterns. "Dr. Keptile and Lieutenant Commander Torres have requested this session to present new contextual information regarding human biological and social behaviors. The floor is yours, Doctor." "Thank you, Admiral," Dr. Keptile began, her skin showing professional blue patterns. "What we will present today demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding that has persisted for 847 cycles of Alliance interaction with humanity." The presentation began with the most basic human biological functions: yawning, sneezing, crying, sweating, providing proper scientific context for each. Torres demonstrated some of these functions, voluntarily where possible, while Dr. Keptile presented the biological mechanisms and evolutionary purposes behind them. "The human respiratory system evolved on a planet with airborne particulates," Dr. Keptile explained, as Torres sneezed again, causing several committee members to flinch despite the containment field. "Sneezing is simply a reflexive clearing mechanism, not a deliberate dispersal of biological material." They proceeded to address social behaviors: dancing, singing, theatrical performances, children's games, explaining their cultural significance and historical development. "These activities evolved as community bonding mechanisms," Torres explained, "not as combat training or psychological manipulation techniques." As the presentation continued, Torres could see the impact it was having. The Toxian skin displayed patterns of realization and concern. The crystallines emitted frequencies associated with reconsideration. The aquatic representatives bubbled with agitation. "If I may interject," Representative Morton of the Aquatic Federation said, "are we to understand that for 8 centuries, we have been systematically misinterpreting basic human biological functions as weapon systems?" "That is correct," Dr. Keptile confirmed, her skin showing solemn affirmation patterns. "This is unprecedented," Admiral Vexthera stated, her skin displaying complex patterns of distress and recalculation. "The implications extend far beyond Earth's classification. Our entire xenobiological assessment framework may be compromised." The committee fell into intense discussion, with representatives from each species contributing their perspectives on how the misunderstanding had perpetuated within their own intelligence services. Torres watched with growing hope as the consensus shifted visibly away from viewing humanity as a threat. After 2 hours of scientific explanations and cultural context, Admiral Vexthera called for a formal vote on Earth's classification status. "Based on the evidence presented," she announced, her skin displaying formal decision patterns, "I propose that Sol 3, Earth, be removed from the combat zone classification." The vote was unanimous. Earth would no longer be designated as a combat zone. Torres felt a wave of relief wash over him. "However," Admiral Vexthera continued, "given the unique biological characteristics of humans, I propose Earth be reclassified as a biological hazard zone, requiring specialized training and protective equipment for non-human visitors." Torres's relief evaporated. "A biological hazard zone? That's hardly better than a combat zone." "Not from a diplomatic or economic perspective," Dr. Keptile whispered, her skin showing cautionary patterns. "This is actually a significant improvement." The vote for the new classification passed with only Torres abstaining. "Lieutenant Commander Torres," Admiral Vexthera addressed him directly, "in light of today's revelations, I am creating a new position, Chief of Human-Alien Relations. You will be responsible for providing advance notice to non-human delegations regarding normal human biological events, sneezing, yawning, crying, sweating, and ensuring proper protective measures are in place." Torres wasn't sure whether to feel honored or insulted. He'd essentially been named the official warning system for human bodily functions. "I accept the position, Admiral," he said finally. "Excellent," Admiral Vexthera replied, her skin showing satisfaction patterns. "Your first duty will be to create comprehensive briefing materials on human biological functions for distribution throughout the Alliance." As the meeting adjourned, Torres found himself released from the containment field at last. Commander Zix approached him, crystal structures vibrating with what Torres had learned to recognize as amusement. "Congratulations on your promotion, Chief Torres," the commander said. "You've saved Earth from being a battlefield, though at the cost of declaring it a biohazard." "I suppose it's progress," Torres sighed. "At least now, when I sneeze, people will only panic a little." "Indeed," Commander Zix agreed, "though I recommend carrying personal containment equipment at all times. Some species will take longer than others to adjust their perceptions." Torres nodded, already envisioning the awkward diplomatic situations ahead. He'd need to create warning cards for human delegates. "I am about to cry. This is not a chemical attack. I may yawn. I am not preparing to consume you." As he left the Harmony Chamber, Torres couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. 847 cycles of misunderstanding, nearly culminating in a military classification, all resolved by a sneeze and some basic biology lessons. Earth wasn't a combat zone anymore, just a biological disaster area populated by unpredictable creatures who might, at any moment, expel microdroplets of potentially alarming bodily fluids. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As Torres returned to his quarters aboard the Meridian's edge, he began drafting his first official communication as Chief of Human-Alien Relations. The heading made him smile despite himself. "Advisory on the biological unpredictability of humans and recommended safety protocols for interspecies diplomacy. The universe, it seemed, would just have to get used to humans and all their messy, unpredictable biology. And humans, in turn, would need to get used to being viewed as walking biohazards. It wasn't the first cultural misunderstanding in galactic history, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. But at least now, when a human sneezed in a meeting, there was slightly less chance of it starting an interstellar incident. 2 cycles later, Torres stood before a classroom of alien diplomatic trainees, explaining yet again the concept of allergies. "So you see," he said, pointing to the holographic display of human nasal passages, "pollen, dust, or certain chemicals can trigger an inflammatory response in human mucous membranes, leading to the expulsion of air and mucus that we call a sneeze." A crystalline trainee raised an appendage. "But this expulsion occurs without conscious control?" "Correct," Torres confirmed. "We can sometimes feel it coming and try to suppress it, but generally, it's an automatic response." "How can a species be considered sentient when its biological functions operate autonomously?" asked a young Toxian, skin displaying genuine confusion. Torres suppressed a sigh. This was the 14th time he'd taught this course, and still, the concept seemed to baffle many Alliance species. "All sentient beings have some autonomous biological functions," he explained patiently. "Humans simply have more visible ones than many Alliance species." "And the watering of the eyes during emotional states?" inquired a botanical trainee, leaves quivering with curiosity. "Tears," Torres clarified. "They serve multiple purposes, lubricating the eyes, removing irritants, and yes, expressing strong emotions. They're not weapons or signals of aggression." After the class, Torres met with Dr. Keptile in what had become their regular debriefing session. Her laboratory aboard the Infinite Curiosity had become something of a cultural education center, with artifacts and displays from Earth history arranged to provide context for human development. "How did it go today?" she asked, her skin displaying friendly inquiry patterns. "The usual confusion and disbelief," Torres replied, settling into a chair designed to accommodate human posture, a rarity on Alliance vessels. "I'm starting to think we should just require all non-human visitors to Earth to wear full environmental suits and be done with it. That would rather defeat the purpose of cultural exchange," Dr. Keptile pointed out, her skin showing amusement. "Besides, progress is being made. The incident reports of biological attacks have decreased by 63% since your appointment." "I suppose that's something," Torres acknowledged. "Though I'm not sure how I feel about my official title now, including Biological Event Warning System, in 3 different Alliance languages." "Be proud," Dr. Keptile encouraged, her skin displaying supportive patterns. "You've single-handedly changed the perception of humanity throughout the Alliance." "With a sneeze," Torres added wryly. "With a sneeze," Dr. Keptile agreed, her skin rippling with scholarly satisfaction. "Sometimes the smallest events trigger the greatest paradigm shifts." Torres nodded, thinking of the long journey ahead. Earth's reclassification was just the beginning. There were countless misunderstandings to correct, centuries of flawed intelligence to recontextualize. But at least now, the process had begun. "By the way," Dr. Keptile said, her skin showing playful patterns, "the Crystalline Diplomatic Corps has submitted a formal request for clarification regarding the human practice known as blowing kisses. They're concerned it might be a form of airborne pathogen transmission disguised as a greeting ritual." Torres groaned. "Of course they are. Schedule a demonstration for next week, and make sure they're all wearing their protective gear. I wouldn't want anyone to be traumatized by flying human affection particles." As Dr. Keptile's skin displayed laughter patterns, Torres realized that his new role, while occasionally frustrating, was perhaps the most important diplomatic position in human-alien relations. He was, quite literally, teaching the galaxy not to fear humanity's most basic biological functions. It wasn't the space exploration career he'd imagined as a child, but it was making a difference. One sneeze, one tear, one yawn at a time. 6 months later, Torres stood in the observation lounge of the Meridian's edge, watching Earth grow larger in the viewport as the vessel approached. After an extensive tour of Alliance diplomatic outposts, delivering his now famous Understanding Human Biology seminar, he was finally returning home for a well-deserved leave. Excited to return to the biological hazard zone, Commander Zix asked, joining him at the viewport, crystal structures gleaming in Earth's reflected light. "I prefer to call it home," Torres replied with a smile. "But, yes, I'm looking forward to sneezing without causing an interstellar incident." "Your educational campaign has been remarkably effective," Commander Zix noted. "The new diplomatic guidelines have been implemented across all Alliance vessels. Non-human visitors to Earth now receive comprehensive briefings on human biological functions before departure." "And how many still request hazard pay?" Torres asked, raising an eyebrow. "Only about 40%, Commander Zix admitted, crystal structures vibrating with amusement. "Down from 93% before your appointment." "Progress," Torres acknowledged, as they watched Earth's blue-green surface come into clearer view. Commander Zix shifted slightly, crystal structures emitting what Torres had come to recognize as a hesitant frequency. "There is a personal question I have been wanting to ask," the commander said finally. "Go ahead," Torres encouraged. "The human practice of laughter, the rhythmic expulsion of air accompanied by vocalizations. Dr. Keptile's materials classify it as a social bonding mechanism. But is it not also an autonomous response like sneezing?" Torres smiled. "It's both, actually. We can laugh voluntarily as a social signal, but genuine laughter is often spontaneous and difficult to control." "Fascinating," Commander Zix responded, crystal structures shifting to an analytical configuration. "A semi-voluntary biological function with social implications. There is truly nothing comparable in crystalline physiology." "Every species has its quirks," Torres said diplomatically. "Indeed," Commander Zix agreed. "Though I must say, humans have an unusually high concentration of them." The ship's communication system chimed, and Admiral Vexthera's voice filled the observation lounge. "Lieutenant Commander Torres, please report to the command chamber for a final briefing before planetfall." Torres sighed. "Duty calls. Probably another last-minute update to the Human Biological Event Classification Guide." As he made his way through the ship's corridors, Torres reflected on how much had changed in 6 months. The reclassification of Earth from combat zone to biological hazard zone had opened new diplomatic channels, increased trade opportunities, and generally improved humanity's standing in the Alliance. All because of a poorly timed sneeze and the scientific integrity of Dr. Keptile. In the command chamber, Admiral Vexthera waited, her skin displaying formal patterns with undertones of what Torres had learned to recognize as respect. "Lieutenant Commander," she greeted him, "before you return to Earth, I wanted to personally deliver this." She handed him a data crystal, its surface etched with the official seal of the Galactic Navy's High Command. "What is it?" Torres asked, turning the crystal in his hand. "The official reclassification of Earth," Admiral Vexthera explained, her skin showing satisfaction patterns. "Based on your educational campaign and the resulting reduction in biological incident reports, High Command has approved a further status change." Torres looked up in surprise. "Earth is no longer a biological hazard zone?" "Not entirely," Admiral Vexthera clarified, her skin displaying nuanced patterns. "The new classification is Controlled Biological Integration Zone. Visitors will still receive training and protective options, but the emphasis has shifted from protection to understanding." It wasn't perfect, but it was another step forward. Torres felt a surge of pride. "Thank you, Admiral," he said sincerely. This will mean a great deal to Earth's diplomatic standing." "It was earned," Admiral Vexthera replied, her skin showing honest acknowledgement patterns. "Your work has revealed significant flaws in our xenobiological assessment protocols. Changes are being implemented across all divisions." As Torres prepared to depart for Earth's surface, Dr. Keptile met him in the shuttle bay, her skin displaying farewell patterns tinged with scholarly pride. "I've been invited to Earth to establish a Cultural Context Institute," she informed him. "The Alliance Council believes we need a more systematic approach to preventing such misunderstandings in the future." "That's excellent news," Torres said. "Will you accept?" "Of course," Dr. Keptile replied, her skin showing enthusiasm. "The opportunity to study human culture directly is too valuable to pass up. Besides, someone needs to explain to the Alliance why humans insist on blowing out candles, on nutrient celebration constructs, and then consuming them." Torres laughed. "Birthday cakes? Yes, I can see how that might need some context." As his shuttle departed the Meridian's edge, Torres watched the massive vessel recede against the backdrop of space. What had begun with a misinterpreted sneeze had evolved into a complete reassessment of interspecies understanding throughout the Alliance. There was still much work to be done. Humans remained biological oddities in the eyes of many Alliance species. Sneezing in public still caused some alarm. Crying was still occasionally misinterpreted as a chemical deployment. But the conversation had changed from fear to curiosity, from threat assessment to scientific inquiry. And all because he couldn't hold back a sneeze during a high-level briefing. As Earth grew larger in the shuttle's viewport, Torres allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. Sometimes, the most significant diplomatic breakthroughs came not from carefully crafted treaties or strategic negotiations, but from the simple, undeniable reality of being human, messy biology and all. When the shuttle landed at the Galactic Navy's Earth headquarters, in what had once been Geneva, Torres was surprised to find a small, welcoming committee waiting for him. Captain Rodriguez, his former academy instructor and mentor, stepped forward with a broad smile. "Welcome home, Chief Biological Event Warning System," Rodriguez said with a grin. "Your new title has caused quite a stir around here." Torres groaned good-naturedly. "Please tell me that's not going on my office door." "Too late," Rodriguez laughed. "It's already been translated into 17 Alliance languages and mounted in the diplomatic wing." As they walked through the headquarters complex, Torres was struck by the changes that had occurred during his absence. Signs in multiple alien scripts offered guidance on human biological event zones, areas where normal human activities like eating, exercise, or social gatherings took place. Specialized observation areas with environmental filters had been installed to allow non-human visitors to witness these activities safely. "We've embraced our new classification status," Rodriguez explained, noting Torres's surprised expression. "Turns out, being a biological integration zone has its advantages. Alliance species are fascinated by human biology now that they're not terrified of it. We've seen a 300% increase in scientific and cultural exchange applications." "That's not what I expected," Torres admitted. "The universe works in strange ways," Rodriguez said philosophically. "Your sneeze might have been the best thing to happen to human-alien relations since first contact." In the months that followed, Torres divided his time between Earth and various Alliance worlds, continuing to build bridges of understanding. Dr. Keptile's Cultural Context Institute became a renowned center for interspecies education, with branches opening on 12 different Alliance worlds. The Human Biological Function Classification Guide, originally created as a warning system, evolved into the best-selling xenobiology text in the Alliance, with special holographic demonstrations of sneezing, yawning, crying, laughing, and other human biological peculiarities that had once caused diplomatic crises. 1 year after the infamous sneeze, Torres found himself back aboard the Meridian's edge. this time as a keynote speaker for the first Galactic Conference on Contextual Intelligence Assessment. The irony wasn't lost on him as he stood in the same chamber where he'd once been contained as a biohazard. The lesson we've learned, he told the assembled representatives from throughout the Alliance, is that biology is inseparable from culture, and both must be understood in their proper context. The same action, a sneeze, a laugh, a tear, can mean entirely different things depending on the species and circumstances. Admiral Vexthera, now head of the newly formed Contextual Intelligence Division, added her perspective. For 847 cycles, we operated under a fundamental misapprehension. We saw threat where there was merely difference. This must not happen again. As the conference concluded, Torres stood in the observation lounge, gazing out at the stars. Commander Zix joined him, crystal structures glinting in the starlight. "I have been studying human philosophical concepts," the commander said. "There is one that seems particularly relevant to our shared experience, the idea of cosmic irony." "How so?" Torres asked. "That the very biological functions that cause the Alliance to fear humanity are now the foundation of improved understanding." Commander Zix explained that a sneeze, once seen as a weapon, is now viewed as a fascinating evolutionary adaptation. Torres nodded. "There's a human saying, 'God works in mysterious ways.'" "Indeed," Commander Zix agreed, crystal structures shifting to a contemplative configuration. "Though I must confess, I still maintain personal distance when humans display signs of impending nasal expulsions." Torres laughed. "That's probably wise. Some things transcend cultural understanding." As they stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars, Torres reflected on the strange journey that had brought him here. From a misinterpreted yawn, to a classified combat zone, to a biological integration initiative, the path of interspecies understanding was neither straight nor predictable. Earth remained a place of biological mystery to many Alliance species. Humans were still viewed as somewhat unpredictable, their bodies constantly engaged in activities that other species found alternately fascinating and alarming. But now, those differences inspired curiosity rather than fear, study rather than threat assessment. In the end, Torres realized that was all any species could hope for, to be seen not as a threat to be contained, but as a wonder to be understood. Even if that understanding came with a healthy dose of caution and the occasional containment field. After all, you never knew when a human might sneeze.